The first sign that Trump is beating Democrats on actual issues like the economy and crime is when they start their distraction and deflection routine. It's so obvious at this point, it's actually getting boring. They prefer to have Biden hunker in the bunker as they peddle stories that have zero effect on your daily lives.
John Bolton unleashing a torrent of criticism against his former boss.
Saying he is not okay for the American people.
Calling him, listen to these words, naive and dangerous.
A little more than 6,000 people showed up Saturday in Tulsa, far below the expectations.
The issue that drives the president more than anything else in these rallies, and that is the crowd size.
Why does he use racist phrases like the Kung flu? Are you saying the White House does not believe it is racist?
Now, Biden doesn't need, of course, to worry about his crowd sizes because he doesn't do rallies at all. Last week's Pennsylvania event wasn't even open to the public, but only to 20 local officials and small business owners handpicked by the campaign. That's convenient. And in the arena, though, the Trump campaign's magnetometer, of course, showed 12, not 6,000 in attendance, as was widely reported by the press. But regardless, an eye-popping 11.7 million people watched Trump's rally on TV and online. Trump gave Fox News its highest Saturday night ratings in network history. But the main point is, I think 20 years from now, no one's going to be writing about things like John Bolton's bitter neocon ramblings. No one's going to be writing about the specific crowd size at a single presidential rally. And no one's going to care what nicknames were given to a pandemic. But historians, if they're honest, will note how in 2020, Trump stood up to defend the greatness of America as roving bands of neo-Marxists ripped down historical markers in states and cities run by liberals. And they'll also report how the people had no vote on any of this, and how, as I predicted weeks ago, the destruction went far beyond the original Confederate targets.
Videos posted to social media show the moment Francis Scott Key was dragged to the ground. Key wrote the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. He was also a slave owner. Protesters knocked down the statue of former President and Civil War General Ulysses S. Grant and the statue of Junipero Serra.
In an exclusive interview with Raymond Arroyo, President Trump was quick to point out what all the chaos-engulfed cities have in common.
Whether it's Chicago, it's Democrat. Seattle, it's Democrat. The state of Washington, it's Democrat. Portland, it's Democrat. All of these places are run by Democrats. 20 out of 20 are Democrat run. They don't know what they're doing. And if Biden got in, this country would be a disaster.
We'll have more from Raymond's exclusive interview with the president later on in the hour. But seriously, what Republican, when you really think about this, other than Trump, would have defied the media and defied even some local officials to be with his supporters? I think he did it to show people that life has to go on, that business, the business of America, must go on, and that the campaigning must go on. And of course, that we cannot stay hidden forever and separated from one another as the Democrats want. Now, just imagine a Republican like, let's say, Mitt Romney, if he were running. He'd be speaking to you from the comfort of home, muffled behind his mask and espousing cliches about alone together. Now imagine the enthralled dozens who would tune in for that. Now, better than anyone else on the political scene today, Trump knows how important it is to identify, frame, and win the current culture wars.
Leftist radicals in Portland, Oregon, ripped down a statue of George Washington and wrapped it in an American flag and set the American flag on fire. Democrat, all Democrat. Everything I tell you is Democrat. And you know, we ought to do something. We should have legislation that if somebody wants to burn the American flag and stomp on it, but just burn it, they go to jail for 1 year.
Well, he also properly defined Joe Biden for what he is, a figurehead. and a feeble one at that.
Joe Biden has surrendered to his party and to the left-wing mob. He has no control. Does anybody honestly think he controls these radical maniacs? Joe Biden is not the leader of his party. Joe Biden is a helpless puppet of the radical left.
Bingo. The Trump campaign seems to get it. This isn't an election between Trump and Biden. It's between Trump and the far left that's captured the Democrat Party. Finally, I think by merely showing up in Tulsa, Trump demonstrated that he's not going to be controlled by the COVID fearmongers. The media and his political opponents, they don't care about COVID infections. Give me a break, for if they did, they would have shut down the George Floyd protests in dozens and dozens of cities across America. But they didn't. And thus, none of them should be taken seriously anymore on this topic, period. Unless you're in the crowd that's maybe anti-Trump, they want you locked down until a vaccine is available. No one's going to do that. Well, smart states have said no to all that and yes to reopening. More testing, of course, means you're going to have more infections. But now that we see the true lethality of the virus and the virus attenuating, along with the devastation that all the lockdowns cause, we're getting a clearer picture of all this. Not surprising, the states that dragged out their shutdowns are falling behind economically. The Wall Street Journal noting today that 9 of the 10 states with the highest jobless rates are run by Democrats, who've tended to demand that the economy should stay locked down and in some cases are still resisting opening. You can see them all listed here. Not surprisingly, Witless Whitmer's state of Michigan is number 3 on the list with 21% unemployment, California at 16% jobless rate, followed by New Jersey and Illinois at a miserable 15% rate. Now, of course, the state with the lowest unemployment rate is Nebraska, which is controlled by Republicans and was never under a statewide stay-at-home order. Other states that never saw a lockdown still saw unemployment go up as the national economy tanked, but now every single one of them is still better off than those Democrat states I just showed you. The 8 states that didn't fully lock down had an average unemployment rate of 9.1%, still much lower than the others I cited. Now, this shouldn't surprise any of us. We trust the people. They want to control the people. We believe you can make your own decisions especially about your health. But they want to make them for you. They want to open America to a flood of new workers at a time when so many of you are still struggling to get back on your feet. African Americans and Latinos especially need a president who sees the importance of taking care of Americans first. And in that vein, the president today issued executive action to immediately halt the issuing of new visas to foreign non-agricultural workers. Now, this is key to opening jobs for Americans who desperately need them. The administration expects these new restrictions to free up 525,000 jobs for Americans. Now, contrary to what you'll hear from the Open Borders media, public opinion shows traditionally huge support for pauses in immigration. A Washington Post University of Maryland poll from late April found that 65% of those polled support pausing immigration into the country, including 61% of minority respondents. And a Pew Research Center poll found that 81% of Americans see mass migration as a threat as we confront the challenges posed by the coronavirus. Now, while immigration hawks like myself, we still want more, President Trump deserves huge credit for standing up to the business lobby to protect American workers. The Democrats will run in the opposite direction, I promise you. For the past month, pretty much all you've seen on TV are the people who vehemently hate what's at the core of this country, everything we stand for. You're seeing it tonight in Lafayette Park in Washington. But now I think it's time that we see Americans standing up to say, hell no, you won't. And by the way, we'll have our say soon. And that's the angle.